1 year ago, the state of civility in San Diego politics left a lot to be desired. Dust-ups and closed-door meetings between former Mayor Bob Filner and city officials spilled over into public meetings. San Diego has a new mayor now and a fresh start at restoring civility in local government. But some believe it's going to take more than just a change at the top. Citizens also have to participate. Mesa College political science professor Carl Luna and Voice of San Diego's CEO Scott Lewis join me to talk about this process. Carl, you co-wrote an op-ed piece recently that said elected officials need our help to create good local government. What kind of help?
Well, one of the problems we have is that we have an 18th century system of government where a small group of elite are going to make most of the decisions with experts. The voters show up to vote every now and then. In the 19th and 20th century, we introduced meetings where the voters show up at a microphone and talk, and then after they talk, you ignore them and do what you need to do as the elected officials. In an age of social media, in an age of a digital age, the citizens, there's so many complex things we need to work with. We need to crowdsource governance. We need to get citizens more involved than just the ballot box, but in a constructive way, so debate doesn't just become accusation and destructive dialogue, that you're actually working toward community problem solving.
So Scott, let's talk about how you do that. Recent voter turnout in the special mayoral election was around 37%. There were a lot of negative ads fueled by special interest money. People are turned off. How do you bring them to the table?
Well, I disagree a little bit in the sense that San Diego actually had a lot better turnout than most major cities that had an election in 2013. So I don't think it's a given that we had some sort of more toxic environment and that it really turned people off. I think that there is a major difference, though, between negative advertising and unethical, sort of uncivil advertising and communications. I really believe in conflict, and I believe in negative critique to help progress, advance, and engage debates. But it crosses a line when it starts to, in an unfounded way, cast aspersions about somebody's integrity or character without any proof or any kind of scientific, addressing it by a method. And I think that too often we see mailers, we see commercials go into that range, negative plus character assassination. And I think that that's where we get into trouble, because I do believe that conflict can get us places, that through debate we can achieve things.
And you get at the truth.
Right, but we have to figure out standards and a culture that embraces that, but that really discourages the character assassination that comes off. It's one thing to expose somebody's wrongdoing. That's fine. There's a investigative journalistic way to do that. But just name-calling or character assassination is where we cross the line.
So how do you bring folks, citizens, to the table?
One of the things you do is you start to get people to realize they don't have to put up with just negative politics, that there's ways to try to hold elected officials accountable. Another way to do it, though, is to start building more grassroots processes that engage citizens. Recently in Coronado, there was a discussion regarding open lunch at the high schools that was done at the local library. Without good moderation, the whole thing degenerated into name-calling. People were degrading each other's children. There was the whole Solana Beach Community Center issue that degenerated into a ballot initiative where friendships were ended. There are ways you can bring in moderators and put people around a table, that you can start using different forms of conversation, putting us in each other's shoes and switching it up and what you're interested in, laying out what's our end goal and how do we work back from our end goal, and then use that to work with elected officials to say, this is what we'd like to see, what can we try to do? Right now, voters' real input is you vote and you go away, or you show up at an open mic and you yell, or you write an op-ed, and there's really no incentive to the political structure to pay attention. The community is a resource, if you harnessed it correctly, to help policymakers make better policies, which results in a happier citizenship, and you get reelected, and you don't have to call each other nasty names accordingly.
Scott, what's the media's role in restoring civility in politics?
Well, the media is biased towards conflict, right? Like, that's, if anything that we're biased towards, it's toward conflict. If somebody...
And that's what readers like to read,
well, it's not just that readers like to me. Again, in conflict is where there's the story. Usually there's something important happening. Now, what we need to do is when we host debates about it, when we set up counterpoints, that we select people who are willing to disagree even passionately, but again, not cross that line about character assassination and integrity issues. Once you start speculating on somebody's motives, you've taken the debate into a negative and unproductive atmosphere. And I think the media has to recognize that and really try to channel it back to the issues, the disagreements, and the principles involved.
Okay, we've got to wrap it there. I just want to mention that the conference, the Civility Conference, is this Friday at USD Center or Institute for Peace and Justice. Thank you.
Thank you.